Hello and welcome. My name is Maggie and I'm an English teacher. I came back from vacation this week, so today we're going to have our first live class back from my vacation. I went to Mexico with my family. I got to see my grandmother and my aunt and uncle, and some cousins, two of my cousins. Maybe I can show you a picture from my vacation before we get started. I was there with my family. Let's see. This was out the window of the plane. I took this picture out the window of the airplane. That was cool. There was a picture that I had of my family all together. This is my grandmother. She insisted on taking pictures with everyone. So this lady helped her in the airport and she wanted to take a picture with this lady. So that was kind of funny. This is our whole family photo. So you can see it's my cousins, my sister, her husband, my aunt and uncle, my mom, my dad, me, my grandma, and my husband is the one awkwardly standing to my left. He's getting into the picture. But yeah, those are some pictures I just wanted to show all of you. Yeah, she's very cute and chatty. She's from the South in the United States. And I think that people from the South in the United States tend to be more willing to talk to strangers. They're warmer compared to people from other parts of the country, so she kind of has a touch of that. And also it's funny because she has kind of shaky hands and she'll try to sneakily take pictures of people, but it's very obvious because her hands are shaking. Okay, so that was a little intro of your spouse stands out as. I do have on my dad's side, one of my uncles is Mexican because he married my dad's brother. So I do have a couple Hispanic people in my family, but they're by marriage. So I thought today we could talk about life milestones. Now, everyone is going to have different life milestones. If you're wondering, well, what is a milestone? A milestone is when you achieve something in life, like a big step that you take in life. So for example, you starting school, finishing school, getting married, all of these can be considered life milestones. If you're running a race and you see, a sign that says, oh, you have run 1 mile or you have run 6 miles, those are the milestones. It shows that you have accomplished a certain stage in the race, and we use that sort of metaphor to talk about life. So I will start with the first milestone, which is, I have to put my little picture here. Yeah, it's like achievements, exactly. It's like achievements. And the metaphor, I suppose, is when you're running a race. Yeah, in Spanish it would be hitos, exactly. Finishing school and university, this is an achievement or a life milestone. Here are some different phrases you can use for talking about finishing school or university. Now, the most common way to say that a university accepted you could say, I was accepted by this university. But a very, very common way you'll hear a lot of English speakers talk about this is, I got into a university. So I got into, it's logros, but literally milestone is like hitos. So you could think about it like hitos. So for example, I got into Harvard University. That's not true, but for someone, maybe it is true. In my case, I got into a university called DePaul University, and that's where I ended up going. So I got into, or I got accepted into. It's like accomplished different achievements in different periods of life. Exactly. Yeah. And especially if you are talking about your life in a job interview, for example, it's helpful to kind of think of your life like a narrative, right? Where you're like, okay, I have some different milestones. In order to tell someone about your life journey in a kind of short way, and in that case, you'll probably focus more on like the professional ones and not like the personal ones. But I got into a university, I got accepted into a university. If any of you can think of an example of a milestone that you have accomplished or reached based on university or education, please let me know in the comments. Yeah, actually relationships could be a milestone. Like your first relationship could be a milestone. Your most important, longest relationship could be a milestone. Or if you get engaged or married or live together or achieve some sort of extra level of, I don't know, stage in life with this person, that could be also considered a milestone. Some other phrases are you could settle into a university. That's more like you get used to it. So maybe in the beginning, you need to get more used to the way things are. You're not used to being away from your family if you go to a university in a different city, or you're not used to very difficult tests. So to settle into is kind of like to get more comfortable and to start to feel used to the way things are, is to settle into something. I took French classes to prepare for my master's examination. That was my milestone. Nice. Everything important for the first time is a milestone. True. Yeah, I think that's the other thing is like you get to define what a milestone is for you. Also, maybe maybe something that feels like more of a milestone for another person doesn't feel like a milestone for you as much. Because, like, for example, my first milestone living away from my parents, sometimes people ask, is it difficult living in a different country or living away from your family? For me, the biggest milestone was when I graduated high school, then I moved across the country. And so for me, that was kind of like the first big milestone living away from my family. So something for you that might be a more important milestone, another person could think something else is a more important milestone. Are you fluent in German? I'm not fluent in German. I was taking classes in German, but at the moment I'm working on a different milestone, so I put the classes on pause. I did get to a point where I was able to understand a good amount when listening to media, and for me, that, even not being fluent, but just understanding a third language was a milestone. When I started learning English from scratch was the hardest milestone. Definitely. I think all of you could say probably reaching a certain level of English is an important milestone. Or like, what are you able to do with English? So getting a job in English could be an important milestone too. We have also to hit the books. That's just to say that you're studying a lot. That's more talking about your experience at university. The last two I would say are also important milestones. We have to graduate from or graduate with honors. So graduate from means the institution, right? So I graduated from Michigan University, or I graduated from University of Chile, for example. So with from, we're going to put the name of the institution. Graduate with honors, I guess it depends on what country you're from. It might be called something different, but in some countries, if you graduate with a very high GPA, grade point average, if you graduate with a high GPA, you could graduate with honors. So that's another achievement that you could have related to university. I resumed learning Turkish, now reading Lord of the Rings. Okay, nice. For some families, when a newborn comes into the family, yes. Okay, so I'll move on. We have finishing school. That is a milestone. I have other milestones. So, another milestone is Landing a job. Landing a job. I think a lot of people know the phrase get a job. It means that you obtained or received a job. That's a very common phrase. I got a job. We also could say I landed a job. So this verb land is used with jobs or projects, basically to show that you achieved getting something, especially if it's a little bit difficult, right? So I applied for years and then I finally landed my dream job. So that would be to land a job. We also have, for example, to get your foot in the door. This is a good phrase because maybe even if you don't land your dream job, it's not yet your dream job, you could still get your foot in the door, meaning like you had your first experience in the field. I have a good example. Imagine this happens to a lot of people when they move countries and they kind of have to start over. Imagine in my country, I work in human resources. And then I moved to another country where it's difficult for me to land a job because I don't speak the language as fluently and maybe I don't have experience in that country. So I start working in something else. Maybe I work in a restaurant, a hair salon, or in some other way just to kind of make money. But it's not in my profession that I studied. One day, I end up getting a job as a receptionist in a company that I really want to work in. I could say, I'm not working in human resources. I'm not working in the same level, like at the same level that I was in my home country, but I got my foot in the door. Now I could try to make connections or try to get a promotion, within this company. So that's an important thing. Like, we don't only have to consider landing your dream job as a milestone. Even just getting your foot in the door could be a milestone. Nailing the AE sound is a milestone. The phonetic alphabet. Yeah, I think everyone has their sound that's difficult when they're learning another language. Being a best version of yourself could be a milestone. True. Yeah, some of these are like more abstract than others. When you are in a new job, and I'm curious if any of you have ever achieved a milestone related to work, like your first job or your dream job, for example. Another thing that happens when you start at a new job or in a new company is you learn the ropes. This is an idiom that comes from boats, to learn the ropes. If there was a new person, okay, for example, I'm pretty sure, I'll have to check this, but we have a lot of idioms related to boats that talk about the workplace. And when you had a new person working on a boat, they needed to learn literally how to use the ropes on the boat. Like, okay, pull the rope in this way or that sort of thing. So that is used as an idiom to say when you start in a new job, basically learning all of the ways that you're supposed to do your tasks, for example, is I'm still learning the ropes. I landed a job, but I'm still learning the ropes. I'm still learning how to do my tasks and my responsibilities. Is it worth learning a language besides English? I would say so. I think especially for everyone, it depends on your life goals as well. So which language you're the most interested in learning or would be the most relevant for you. But I definitely think with every language you learn something new or have a new way of seeing the world. So I think it's always good to learn more languages. But I also understand why for some people English is their priority because of the global, if you want to work in an international company, a lot demand English. So I've had a lot of students that have told me that they would like to learn a different language, not English, like Japanese, Italian, French, but they learn English first because they have a more immediate need to learn it. Okay, find your feet. This is Imagine your cat jumps off the roof of your house and then it tries to land and be balanced. This is to find your feet. So it's kind of like to settle into a job is to find your feet. Now, the last two here are after you land a job or you get your foot in the door, you learn the ropes, you find your feet in this job, then you might work your way up or get promoted. Work your way up is to get promotions so that you move up the corporate ladder. So you have more responsibility, you get paid more, hopefully. That's to work your way up. And the idea is you don't just move up, you work your way up. So you're putting in a lot of effort at each step, at each milestone, and you're getting promoted for that effort. If you are talking to a business person that works in a corporation, they might tell you that they started at a lower level entry job, but they worked their way up year after year to get promoted. Finding a job where the default language spoken was English was a dream of mine. After spending some time there, I can't wait to move away from a hole? What do you mean I can't wait to move away from a hole? Yeah, to move to a higher position in a job, exactly. Okay, so these are all different ways that we can talk about the milestone of landing a job. And you know, for some people, this doesn't matter as much. They prefer, I don't know, they're more dedicated to achieving things in other aspects of life, and that's totally okay. I think it's still good to know. It's still good to know how to talk about milestones that are not your personal milestones in case you're in a conversation with someone else, right? So if they're like, I landed a job, it's good to know what that means. Can you use working your way up to a student who you want to do better in school? Working your way. Working your way up has an idea of getting promoted in something. So I would only use it if like the student was somehow achieving, like, now you're class president, now you're a tutor. Like if there was some sort of change in role or responsibility, I would say working your way up. If you just want someone to keep getting better, I would say keep working at it might be better. Like keep working at it, keep putting in that effort. I would say that would fit the situation more. That's an interesting thing about English is like the prepositions that we put after a word can change or be applicable in certain situations. So work your way up is related to getting a promotion. Work at it is like to keep putting an effort towards something. Does landing a job mean to finally find a job after a long time? It doesn't have to. It does have an added idea compared to get a job. Like, okay, to get a job is not very specific. So I could get a job because I was applying to a lot of jobs and finally after some time I got a job. Or I could get a job because of nepotism and my brother's best friend owns a business, so I got a job. But land a job emphasizes more your own effort. So I would not say I landed a job if it was through nepotism. Like if my dad just hired me or something, I wouldn't say I landed a job. I would say I got a job working for my dad. Landed a job does kind of emphasize that you were in the air, like you didn't really have one, and then you were able to get one through some kind of effort. So it doesn't have to be a long time, like it's very often used in that way, but I would say in general, just like putting in any type of effort. Yeah, after seeking it with effort. He finally landed, and instead of landed in, I would say he finally landed a good job and just put the job directly after. Where is he working? An airline. Okay. Nice. He finally landed a good job. Like, landed in, you would use it in a more literal way. I jumped off the building and I landed in a puddle. I landed in some water. But if you're just talking about land a job, then we'll use it without the preposition. Okay, we're gonna go to, so we had school, jobs. Let's do, this is a different sort of milestone. Meeting someone and falling in love. This could be a milestone. For some people, their life goal is like they're very romantic. Their life goal is to get married, and that is totally fine. So you could hit it off with someone. That means that you meet someone for the first time, you have a lot in common, things are flowing. We really hit it off. Hit it off, I like this phrasal verb because it's not only used in a romantic way. You could also hit it off with a person that you want to be friends with. So if you meet someone and you're instantly, like, you have chemistry, it could be romantic or it could be platonic, like friend chemistry, and it feels like you've known this person for longer. You're like, wow, we have so much in common, like, I love your personality. That would be you hit it off with that person. I went to a party and I really hit it off with my friend's friend. We hit it off. The next one, this is more romantic, to ask someone out. To ask someone out means that you ask them to go on a date with you. This could be cultural, but it's not the same as making it official. So, yeah, exactly. Hit it off like there was a spark or something. Yeah. Asking someone out does not make it official, at least in English-speaking countries. So just because you're like, oh, let's go to a movie later, or let's go to a restaurant, that does not make you the person's boyfriend or girlfriend in most, I would say, like, English-speaking environments. You would have to then ask the person to be your boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever, just to avoid confusion. So if you're like, oh, let's go to a movie, and the person's like, yeah, sure, and then later you're like, oh, this is my girlfriend, my boyfriend, you're missing a step there. And maybe in some countries there are more steps or less steps to forming a relationship with someone. So to ask someone out is kind of like the first step, where you basically go on a date with someone, you do something together. After that, when you go on more dates, you are seeing the person. So if I ask you, are you seeing anyone? Yes, I've been going on dates with this girl that I met last week. So are you seeing anyone means that you're going on dates. You are dating, basically. And it sounds pretty casual. You have not officially made a label. Maybe you're not exclusively dating. She could have, like, 3 other guys that she's been seeing too. You don't know. You have to have that conversation. Then, if you're, like, falling for someone, you start to develop more romantic feelings, and you're like, I mean, I know some people are non-monogamous, but if you are monogamous, you might be like, can we make it official and, like, exclusively date each other? Can we be boyfriend and girlfriend, etc.? So that's kind of what I would say in terms of, like, milestones with dating. Maybe there are other ones that you guys have that I didn't consider here. I'm curious, would any of you consider these to be milestones with dating? In my personal case, I wouldn't consider just hitting it off with someone to be a milestone. I would consider more like officially starting to date someone as a milestone. But to each their own. I mean, if you feel like it's really life-changing, the interaction you have, you get to define your own milestones. All right. And if any of you have an example, feel free to write it. Someone asked earlier, I think it was you, Nicholas, if people from the US read. Honestly, I would say, like, anecdotally, a lot of my friends and family read a lot. There was a graphic that showed how many books on average people read per year in the Americas. And I think in the US it was relatively high. It is also, from my experience in Latin America, depending on the country you're in, it can be easier to find affordable books in the US. Like, there are a lot of used bookstores with good quality books. I also think if you compare the minimum salary to the price of books, it's more affordable compared to when I went to Argentina or even in Chile. I find that books are so expensive. And I'm curious if that has an impact too. just like the accessibility to find a lot of books. And we have a really good public library system. Like growing up, I didn't even buy books. I would go to the public library and find like 10 books that I really wanted to read. And then I would read a lot from the public library. And that's another thing that I feel Chile at least is kind of lacking in terms of like it could be a lot better. Is the expression that you used to each their own? Yeah, to each their own is like every person can do as they please. So if I give you my preference and I am acknowledging that everyone has different preferences, that would be like, well, to each their own. So if I say, I like my oatmeal with raisins, and you say, well, I like my oatmeal with chocolate, you could say, well, to each their own. Everyone can have their own preference, is the meaning. Yeah, I love the public library. In Brazil, books are really expensive. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I'm sure that there are people that would like to read more than they do, but we need to, I don't know. I was listening to a podcast of a Chilean linguist, and she was saying that the public library system is really lacking. Like, it could be a lot better. Maybe that could be a good, like, I don't know. There should be organizations that raise money for the public libraries. Chocolate raisins. My cousin came to visit us in Argentina and brought a couple books. Nice. Books in Chile are affected by taxes. Yeah, that makes sense. If I want to use the expression ask someone out, should I say, I asked Maria out? Yeah, exactly. I'll give you guys some examples. So to ask someone out, if you ask someone on a date, you can say, I asked Maria out and she said yes, or she said no. A phrasal verb, if a person tells you no or rejects you, is she turned me down. So I asked her out and she turned me down is like I asked her on a date and she said no. You could also, imagine, I'm thinking of like different tenses to use ask someone out. Imagine you are talking to someone and you say, let's see a movie. They could say, are you asking me out? Is this a date? Are you asking me out? So the past tense, I asked her out. The present continuous, are you asking me out? The future, I'm going to ask her out. I finally decided that tomorrow I'm going to have the courage and I'm going to ask her out. So you could use it in different tenses. Okay, so that is love, falling in love with someone. This is kind of along the same lines, getting married and engaged. And even if I know some people are like not really into the institution of marriage, or they are not planning on getting married, but I still think that this vocabulary is useful in case someone uses a phrase with you, like, oh, he popped the question. It's like, what does that mean? By 2030, you could say by 2030 or by the year 2030, I will have asked Maria out at least once. Nice. That's the future perfect tense. What is the difference between hit it off and hit on? Okay, there is an important difference with hit it off and hit on. Hit it off means the two people connect and have a good vibe, a spark. So like me and you had a good conversation and we hit it off. And it could be as friends or in a romantic way. To hit on someone means that one person started flirting with or making kind of like romantic advances towards the other person. So if you're sitting at a bar, I'll give you two examples. Example one, you're sitting at a bar, someone comes up to you and is like, did it hurt? When you fell from heaven, you look so good tonight. I love what you did with your hair. That person is hitting on you because like they are making advances towards you. They're showing their interest in you. They are flirting with you. I would turn them down and be like, no, your lines are kind of cheesy. I don't like your pickup lines. The other option is you're sitting at a bar. You start talking to the person next to you They're like, where are you from? Oh, I'm from New York. Oh, really? I grew up in New York. Oh, great. What part of town? Did you love to ride your bike around the city? Yeah, I did too. And you just like develop a nice conversation, a good vibe. You are hitting it off. Like both of you together are connecting. So that is the difference with hit on someone is kind of like person A to person B. And hit it off is like the two people have a nice dynamic together. How do you say when you're rejected by someone? Yeah. Turn down. You could say, she turned me down. Can you use turn down when you give an idea to do something as in a group project? Okay, turn down is used more like if the person wants you to be in a relationship with them or if they want you to work for them. So you could turn down a job. I could say, hey, could you babysit my kids for $4 an hour? And you could turn down my offer. So to turn down is more like with an offer. If you're in a group project and one person keeps having like bad ideas or maybe okay ideas, but you are rejecting their ideas, the better phrasal verb is to shoot down. To shoot down someone's ideas. So if you continue to make suggestions and say, oh, we should do this, and the person's like, no, bad idea, I hate your ideas, that person is shooting you down. You could say, he shot down my ideas. So turn down is more used when someone's offering a job or romantic relationship to you and you are like, no thanks. And shoot down is more like, I have these ideas. What do you think? And you're like, nope, don't like your ideas. So that would be the difference between to turn someone down and to shoot someone's ideas down. You don't shoot someone down, you shoot their ideas down. I used to hit on my crush during my college years. Okay. So then when it comes to relationships, we have some other phrases that you can use for milestones. To pop the question is another way to say to ask someone to marry you. If you say he popped the question, is like he asked me to marry him. He popped the question, but I turned him down. That also works. You could use I turned him down here. He popped the question and I said yes. He popped the question and I said no, or I turned him down. If you say yes when someone pops the question, when someone asks to marry you, and normally when they ask, they say, will you marry me? Will you marry me? And I don't know, sometimes people say your full name. They're like, Maria Luisa Hernandez. Will you marry me? If you say yes, then you are engaged. You can tell people your relationship status is that you are engaged. So they're like, are you dating anyone? Are you seeing anyone? Actually, I'm engaged. I just got engaged. He popped the question yesterday. Why will you marry me and not would you like to marry me? I think that that's a good question. I feel like would you like is more asking about, it's like not direct enough. Will you marry me is like, do you promise? Because we're going to be comprometidos. Like, do you promise to marry me right now? Like, are you going to promise? Because I will is more definitive. It's more like you're making a promise to that other person versus I would like to marry you, but maybe next year. It's like, it could be kind of just that in theory, sure, you seem nice, but it's not like I'm making that solid promise that a person's looking for when they are like showing you an expensive ring that they got. They're like, tell me yes or no. That's what I would say, the difference between will and would like. No one has ever popped the question to me yet. Okay. Where can I find movies that are full of these expressions? I would say like romantic comedy movies are going to be full of these expressions. I'll think if I can think of like a specific one that has popped the question. But in general, if you watch romantic comedies or like all of those Netflix romantic Christmas movies where they come out with a different one every year, I would say have a lot of this sort of vocabulary in them. Then, this is another expression that people use after, like when you get married, you tie the knot. So, we tied the knot is like an idiom to say we got married. And I would say this sounds very casual. Probably the most common thing to say is we got married. But I imagine most of you already know that expression, we got married. So if you hear someone say, we tied the knot, think about it like, we tied the knot, it's a done deal, we are legally married, we're in a very official marriage, we tied the knot, it's done. There's no turning back now, unless we get a divorce, but we tied the knot, it's done, we are married, it's official. That is to tie the knot, it's to be married with someone. They tied the knot last summer, it's like they officially got married. Have you tied the knot? Yes, exactly. Yeah. I tied the knot in 2022. I tied the knot. Then we have to walk down the aisle. Some people also, like if you're reading a gossip magazine, they don't try to always repeat the same phrases. So if you're reading a gossip magazine, sometimes they say, the couple tied the knot last summer. Or, I don't know, like, Ariana Grande is going to walk down the aisle next year. So sometimes if you're reading like a gossip magazine, they'll use these phrases because it's kind of boring if they only say the very generic, like, get engaged, get married. So that's another good place to find these sort of phrases is gossip magazines, People magazine, Cosmopolitan magazine, The Hollywood Reporter, like all of those sort of magazines are going to have a lot of expressions like this. After he popped the question, they got engaged and hurried to tie the knot because there was a bun in the oven. In case you guys don't know, a bun in the oven means that someone is pregnant. Like the oven is their belly and the bun is the baby. So if someone asks you, like if you're on an elevator and someone's like, oh, is there a bun in the oven? I hope that you're pregnant. If you're not pregnant, you can say, no, there isn't. Mind your business. The last one I have here is to settle down. To settle down means to basically like get comfortable and used to your life. So in a very literal way, to settle, imagine I have water and I add some powder to the water, like some matcha powder. If I leave the water, all of the powder will settle to the bottom. It's all going to go down and rest on the bottom. In life, if you have a life change, like you get married, and then everything, you have like a new normal, you are used to your new life, then you can say, I am settled in or I have settled down. So especially if you get married, move into a new house, and you are going to have like this sort of peaceful lifestyle, then you could say she settled down. Whether or not you get married or just like move permanently into a house and decide this is going to be my life. I am going to have this lifestyle and I'm not going to go to the parties looking for a new boyfriend or girlfriend anymore. I have committed to either my husband, my wife, or being single, and this is my life. That person has settled down. Yeah, it's like settle down to your new circumstances. And it's used a lot. It's used a lot in like this very, I would say, heteronormative way of a man and a woman buying a house, having a baby, and then living there for good. But you could use it, you know, in other ways. How about this one? Okay. So, if you are a person who, like, whether or not you want to get married or have kids, You could also identify moving out or becoming independent as an important life milestone for you. Maybe the first time you move out from your parents' house, or if you get your own place and you live by yourself. You live on your own. You stand on your own 2 feet. This is like you can kind of fend for yourself. You're able to support yourself and be independent is to stand on your own 2 feet. Or put down roots. Put down roots is like another way to say settle down. You establish yourself. You establish yourself. You put down roots or you settle down. After relocating in Berlin, I settled down very quickly. I would say yes, it is possible. I think it is possible to settle down as a single person because it's like you're establishing yourself in your place. You're putting down roots. You're kind of like determining this is going to be my life for the foreseeable future. This is the life that I want. I'm going to be in this house. I'm not going to go out looking for a new partner or a new place to live. I am committed to where I'm at. That would be to settle down. At which age do people in the US get married? People in the US, in my experience, get married definitely much sooner than people in Chile, if at all. Like, I have multiple friends in Chile that have long-term relationships, but I don't think they're going to get married. There are a lot of people in Chile that don't get married. In the US, I got married at age, well, in my case, it's different because I was also moving countries, and so there were multiple reasons I got married, but I got married age 24, turning 25. There are people that I know that got married a lot in like their mid to late 20s. So I would say we settled down kind of young. A lot of people don't do that in other countries, but we settle down pretty young, I would say. This is a question for everyone. Do people tie the knot in your country and at what age? And it's interesting too because you could say like, well, in the US, maybe there's something religious about that. But I would say including couples that I know where they are not religious and like even gay couples or couples that are not in that sort of heteronormative way also get married young. Half the people I know stay in long-term relationships but don't get married. Yeah. Here people settle down at 20, but nowadays more people choose not to in Azerbaijan. Okay. That's interesting. I do think it's also like there are different things, like it is easier to kind of share rent and cost of living when you get married, but also it's more and more difficult to buy a house, so a lot of people live with their parents longer too. 25 to 35 in Iran, okay. So I would say that's similar to the US, like people kind of starting in their mid-20s. In Ecuador, people usually tie the knot very young at around 25. In India, generally people tie the knot at the age 28 to 30. Okay. Do you think that living together is acceptable? In my view, formal documents are a must. For me, yeah, I would actually argue that this is my opinion, so everyone's able to have their own opinion. I think that it's good to see how someone really is living with them before you tie the knot, in my personal opinion, because then you have women who get married and have children with a man who they don't even like know how he really is, and I think that can be kind of dangerous. So I personally like to know the person well and live with the person before a formal document. But I know some people have different like religious beliefs and things of that sort. So I get why people feel differently about that. But I personally would not have felt comfortable marrying my husband if we didn't live together first, in my personal case. In Germany, people usually tie the knot in their mid-30s. Okay, instead of middle 30s, I would say mid 30s. In Argentina, at about 30 and up generally because there are other aims. Okay, yeah, like people have other milestones nowadays instead of only getting married. That makes sense. Yeah. And also, I mean, it depends too because in some countries, having a wedding is very necessary and important, but in other countries, it's not a big deal. Like, you don't need to have a big, expensive wedding. And I imagine that would also influence whether or not someone was going to get married because they felt like they couldn't, afford a wedding, for example, afford those sort of things. In my case, this is a good word if you guys haven't heard it before, to elope. To elope means to get married kind of like secretly and without a wedding. It's like to run away and get married, or to get married secretly. I didn't actually elope, like my parents knew I was getting married, but it was just me and my husband at the courthouse, so it kind of felt like getting eloped instead of having a wedding. Did my sisters get married at a similar young age? One of them did, and the other one has not gotten married yet. So actually, my younger sister got married also at age 24. She got married after me, but also at age 24. And my older sister is not married yet. She's engaged, but for them, they live in Scotland, and so I think that they're figuring out, because like his family's from Poland, so I guess all of us are getting engaged and married young. I have 2 sisters. Those are all of the siblings that I have. I have an older sister and a younger sister. So I'm the middle child. Yeah. But I also have 2 cousins that I grew up with, that I'm pretty close with, that I recently went and saw. And I kind of grew up thinking of them like brothers in a way, so they kind of feel like siblings too. My older brothers. So, tell me, what other life milestones can you think of? Do any of you have life milestones that we didn't talk about today, but you feel like this was a big accomplishment, an achievement that changed my life? Or maybe it was one that we talked about today. Tell me, what is a life milestone that has happened to you, or that you have accomplished? Buying a home and getting retired must be major milestones. True, we didn't talk about that. So buying a home is a major life milestone, and retiring, yeah. I think a lot of people look forward to retiring because you no longer have to work. But unfortunately, it's when you're a lot older, so I think it would be nice if people were still able to do a lot of things in their retirement age. I have done neither of those. Yeah, me neither. I have not bought a house or retired. Having a baby. Okay. Having a baby is another life milestone. For sure. I passed the PMP exam. It's a major self-investment for me. Okay, yeah, like passing a major exam could be a life milestone. Achieving the goal of learning Spanish and getting French B2 certificate. Okay. Why are you why the crying emoji? I think those are good. Maybe it's very difficult. Cleaning my balcony after a very long time. True. Yeah, cleaning my balcony after a very long time is a good life milestone. Or like, I don't know, even if you live somewhere and like the first time someone comes to visit you and you have to clean your house, that can feel like a life milestone. A life milestone. Maybe even buying a car or getting a driver's license. We didn't talk about either of those, but for a lot of people, those are a life milestone because they feel scared to learn how to drive or have to save up a lot of money to buy a car. So those could also be examples of life milestones. They are amazing, but after French classes, my English is becoming weird. I have had that before with students that are learning multiple languages at once. Sometimes their way of speaking gets like mixed up between the different languages. Okay, yeah, knowing multiple languages is another life milestone. Getting a C2 English level would be a great milestone for sure. Being content with the way you live your life. Yeah, I think there are a lot of milestones that we talk about where it's like very physical, easy to see, concrete, like I bought a house, I had a baby. But maybe some of the most important milestones are being happy and like being content with life. Working through some things in therapy could be a good life milestone. Reading The Great Gatsby and other advanced books. Improving English and talking with foreign people are life milestones. Okay. I left church life and feel happier. Is this a kind of milestone? Yeah, I would say so. If you make a life change, and especially if it was something that took effort and you feel better now, that is definitely a milestone. Not talking about church specifically, but I've seen like documentaries of people that leave cults or like leave groups that were really difficult to leave, because if you leave them, you can experience shunning, where everyone refuses to talk to you. And I'm like, wow, the people that leave those sort of environments, certainly that is a milestone, because it's pretty difficult because people don't treat you very well. But that's like a more extreme, a more extreme example that came to mind. The word for, like, when people refuse to talk to you and ignore you on purpose is shunning. Shunning. We learned this word with my book group when we were reading the book Stargirl. She experiences this from her classmates. They treat her differently, they refuse to talk to her, and when people do that to you, it's called shunning. And that happens, like, with the Amish people. I've heard if you leave the community, then they might shun you. Maybe not all Amish. I'm not trying to generalize here, but to give you the cold shoulder, stop drinking or doing drugs must also be a milestone for some people. True. Like if you're an addict and you give up alcohol, for example, that would be a milestone. For me, my biggest milestone, I would say my biggest milestone is probably starting my, I don't know, maybe starting my Instagram account, where I started teaching English on Instagram. And I taught English before, but I was able to meet a lot of new students and be more in control of how I work. And I think that really changed the trajectory of my life. So I would say maybe, maybe like on social media, I had a milestone, like making my own English page. I don't know if it's my most important, like maybe also graduating school or things like that, but I think it is an important milestone. Yeah, I'm happy that I was able to do it. Thanks, guys. Amish is a religion in the United States, and they're very traditional. They're especially based in like Pennsylvania, and they do not use modern technology. They take you can see them on the trains, because I think that they're not supposed to drive. Like they take the trains everywhere. And also they have really good butter because they make the butter themselves. So it's like a very strict religious group in the United States, especially in like Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and like rural Pennsylvania. Yeah, so niche reference. You happen to be Amish? I'm not Amish, no. I'm curious to know more. I feel like I probably gave a bad explanation of their religion, but you know. I'm going to post this on Instagram and also YouTube and Spotify, so you guys can listen when you're doing your dishes, or, you know, listen back and get a nice refresher of some of the words. In terms of speaking faster, I was talking to my husband because people ask me a lot, like, do you speak faster in real life versus when you're going live? I think that there are different factors. One is that I'm thinking about how to explain things to you guys when I'm talking, and so that does kind of make me go slower. And I'm also trying to speak more grammatically correctly. Another thing is my husband said, like, I don't naturally speak so fast compared to some people, but when I'm excited about something. So if I'm talking to like a friend or family member and we're like talking about some story, then I'm like, ah, blah, 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 blah. So I do think I can get into like fast speaking mode. And so I am kind of like slowed down compared to that. But I'm not a person who like constantly speaks fast. I've noticed that I'm not able to like maintain a constant fast speed when I speak. Like just naturally I don't do that. So that's my answer. But I'm gonna try, maybe I can upload a short video for you guys like fast speaking so you can see for yourself. All right, have a good weekend everyone. Take care. Bye bye. See you everyone.